Welcome to Master the Game. I am Juice. Today, we are going to be doing the Ginny Di DnD Tag video. That's right, we're going to be answering D&D questions for the next few minutes. So let's get started. So the other day I saw the Ginny Di DnD Tag video. I also saw the Matt Holmes, also Sherlock Holmes, I think is his YouTube handle, video. And I have to say that I normally wouldn't do a video like this, but I thought it might be fun. A good little way to start off 2021 with some more lighthearted videos, right? So I'm going to do this today, and I'm pretty excited about it. I want to thank our patrons. Without your support, we wouldn't be where we are at today. Some of the things we offer for our patrons is first dibs on playing a game with myself. We also do a Tuesday Zoom call with them if they are $10 and above. It's an off-air thing where we just hang out with our patrons. So let's get into it. So I don't remember my very first character. However, I do remember that he was a fighter. I remember that I had taken specialization in longsword, was also going to be working the shield. He was pretty cool from what I remember. I really wish I could remember his name, though. We weren't playing in an RP heavy group, so there wasn't a lot of name references in that, unfortunately. But it was fun. I remember we went to a wizard's tower, and our characters became chess pieces when we stepped into this room. We were locked. Like, we couldn't move off the square. It was impossible unless as a group we agreed that that person was going to move. And we had to beat the mad wizard in chess. It was awesome. It was a really fun session. I remember our group got a flame tongue sword. I don't remember if I was using that or if our ranger was using it. But either way, it was a really fun, short campaign. And I wish I knew more about that character. I don't have the character sheet anymore or any of that, unfortunately. This one's tough for me. In old editions, I really didn't like the idea of playing a cleric or a bard or anything like that. I've always gravitated more towards martial classes. So again, if you're talking about 5e, I like the fighter and things like that. But when it comes to the classes I wouldn't want to play, I probably would say a monk is at the top of my list. I have no interest in trying out a monk. There's nothing about a monk that really appeals to me. Normally, I like kung fu movies and things like that. But for some reason, when it comes to playing D&D, I just have no interest in playing a monk. This is tough. I'm not somebody who's well-versed on all the spells. But if I had to choose, I feel like it would either be like guidance or maybe a cure wounds spell, remove sickness would be kind of cool. Stuff like that would be awesome because it could keep you going and, healthy and, all that good stuff. You could do a lot of good with those spells, I think. But yeah, I don't know. That's a really tough one. I don't know. What do you think? Post in the comments below. This is another tough question, but I've really started liking specific demons and devils, but I'm also running the Descent into Avernus campaign right now. I like monsters that have cool abilities that kind of help them overcome their stats. I don't need the highest hit points for a monster or armor class. For example, kobolds at low level don't have the best stats, but the pack tactics makes them really useful, and I like using them at low level. When you get higher, you can get, other abilities that make it really cool. Just having resistances can be nice, things like that. But I've found lately that a lot of the demons and devils in Descent into Avernus have some really cool abilities that not only slow down the player characters because it hampers their abilities, but I really like the fact that, you can make a somewhat underpowered monster on the surface able to compete. And so anything like that usually fits into that idea for me. So this is a tough one. As man, all these are tough for me. I don't usually go back and think too much about my campaigns and stuff, but these questions are really forcing me to do that, which is great. NPCs or villains. I had a doppelganger in my Pine Run campaign I really liked. I also really liked the Druid Lich from my Forgotten Throne campaign last year. I really wish there were certain things the players were able to find out. Unfortunately, they didn't play long enough to do that. But yes, those are probably my top two favorite. The doppelganger, actually, it was funny. The city had a leader who was just a ranger who had a wolf. His name was Hunter Dark. And in the campaign, he was the kind of the player's go-to for, hey, we really need this done, and any help is greatly appreciated. At one point, when the players came back, his wolf was never around. I don't think the players figured it out until after a couple sessions when he was acting a little different, purposely sending him further and further away from the town. I don't know if they ever really picked up on it until much later when they actually rescued Hunter Dark. But where was his wolf? I don't know if they ever found his wolf. And that was a lot of fun to role play that, to kind of drop subtle hints that, hey, this isn't actually him. Hey, he's kind of become a jerk, things like that. And so I would probably say he's one of, if not my favorite NPC villains I've come up with. Oh my goodness, yes. I've had quite a few characters die in my games as a player. The most memorable is clearly the Prodicarum from our Githyanki game that we played about 5 years ago. He was my second character in the campaign. First character was a ranger who died. I don't remember how he died, but he died. Very uneventful, probably in my opinion. But again, I don't remember. The second one though was a PvP death. So the premise of the campaign is we were all Githyanki. It was a very militaristic campaign where we had ranks, and in order to move up a rank, you had to best the person above you. And if you sensed weakness in somebody, you were expected to challenge for their spot. If you did not challenge for their spot, the person below you might sense weakness because you're not going for the one above that. So again, there was this whole thing of infighting that happened. Now, you were still expected to do it without, like, in the middle of combat, now you turn on your friend. That's not how you're supposed to do it. But at moments that kind of were slower, you were given an opportunity to move up. It was actually a really cool concept. We played quite a while. It was a drop in and play game. If you couldn't make it one week, no problem. Your character wasn't there. Very mission oriented, and loved it. It was a very narrative game as well. And I think we were level 10, and I made a Githyanki that wasn't like your typical Gith. He was built like Brock Lesnar, big, strong. I made him a barbarian, and our captain, the very top, was a paladin. And at the start, we were taking horses, and I went for the biggest horse. And the captain stepped up and said, "No, this is my horse." And I reluctantly handed over the reins to the largest horse, which led to 20 minutes later in game. Again, this is the very start of this character's first game. We were climbing a mountain cliff. We got to the top. I was the last one up because I was the lowest ranked. And before I could actually get to the top, he cut the rope. Well, luckily, I had that ability that if you can see it, you get advantage on your dex save. So I did. The DM allowed me to pull myself up, but as I'm pulling myself up, my great sword that was on my back, the captain took and used it against me. Hit me, did not kill me the first time. I went to lunge after him to grab my sword, but obviously, well, before I lunged at him, I guess, he did Misty Step, and so I couldn't lunge at him. And started a bunch of PvP. And basically I died. I got cut in half and kicked off the edge of the cliff. That was a pretty memorable scene. for me as a player. And, honestly, looking back on it, it's kind of cool. In the moment, I was kind of like, man, that sucks. I just made him. I've been preparing him for a couple weeks. We've been working with the DM. Like, we had been talking in chats with some of the other players in the DM, and I was really excited to play him. Unfortunately, didn't really get a chance to play him because he was cut in half within 30 minutes of the game starting, I think. Maybe 45 minutes or an hour. I don't know. But point is he died. And it was memorable. I still remember it to this day. And I'll never forget it. So, don't remember his name. I think it was like Batarandak or something like that. But that may have been my ranger in that campaign. I don't know. I feel like I had a pretty I'm usually DM. So when I have natural 20s, while I do still get excited, it doesn't usually sit with me for a long time. It's hard for me to remember a good natural 20 story. But again, like before talking about kobolds a little bit, I love how often I crit with kobolds, and at first level, it's lethal. It's always funny and always entertaining for me. But yeah, I do feel bad sometimes when you kill characters that really it's just not eventful. It's like this really meaningless little death. That does kind of suck. But I still love rolling nat 20s. Oh, so I can't think of any. Even as a DM, though, natural ones are kind of funny. I always try to come up with something, whether a weapon broke. In fact, this past Saturday in our Descent into Avernus game that we play with Luke from the DM Lair, we play with Bill Allen, Nate from WASD20, and my wife, we had a natural one where the guy dropped his dagger down a stairwell because they were fighting near the stairwell. And it seemed perfect that he went to swing and hit it against the railing and dropped his knife down there. Sometimes I come up with the weapon broke, or if they're on something that maybe the area can change. And in fact, that's something I've thought about recently, is incorporating more natural ones creating a change in the scenery, like the ground shaking or something and causing an earthquake, or if they're fighting on a bridge, maybe the bridge gets loose, maybe one of the ropes on the bridge gets cut on accident and becomes unstable. Things like that I think will add to the combat experience and make the combat more memorable, which in turn will make natural ones more memorable. So I want to say it's in that 10 to 13 range. I think that's around the highest I've played. But it's usually been in one-shots. I can't think of a game where I started at level 1 and we moved up into that range. Or if we did, it was accelerated for a short campaign or something. So if we're talking about an actual campaign, maybe level 9 is the highest I've ever played to. I am a big fan of creative magical items. I'm not excited about the Vorpal sword. That would be cool to get or whatever, but it's not going to be the thing that I'm like, oh my gosh, I got it finally. This is my favorite item ever. I like things that are... There's two things I like. I like things to be either kind of not silly, but really don't have a huge mechanical benefit, but the stuff they do is just kind of cool. For example, I created an item, like a ring of mudslinging, that allowed players to sling mud. If they hit, then it caused disadvantage for the character's hit until they wiped the mud out of their eyes. That was the whole premise of it. It did hardly any damage. In fact, I don't think it did any damage. I could be wrong. Maybe it was 1d4 damage. But I'd have to go and look. But either way, the point is it, to me, that was a fun item that changed the way people would play a combat. And, it wasn't overpowered. Xanathar's Guide has some really cool magic items that I just like. So I like things like that. I also am a fan of things like the Deck of Illusions or the Deck of Many Things. I like things that are a little more random, and when you use them, it can change a lot of stuff. So that stuff is more appealing to me than just having the most powerful weapon. There have been times where I I thought it would be cool to have a thematic weapon match, like my cleric, for example. I was playing a Tempest cleric. I thought the Javelin of Lightning, or I think that's what it is in the DM's guide, would have been really cool. Never got it, but that would have been awesome for that character, just because it fit the theme of the character really well. And unfortunately, that one didn't happen. These are like hard questions. I think I'm probably chaotic neutral. If I had to pick, chaotic neutral, maybe chaotic good, would probably, or maybe even neutral good. Because I don't think I don't know. I am kind of a pot stirrer, so maybe I am chaotic. But I'd like to think I'm good, but at the same time, I would probably say I probably am in between good and neutral. So chaotic good, chaotic neutral, somewhere in there. None. This isn't even something I'd ever consider. So I don't know. I mean, which of my characters is most dateable that I've made? That's probably a better question. Again, I don't know. It'd probably be one of my fighters that's a more honorable fighter, more than anything. But yeah, it's been a minute since I've played a character like that. So I don't usually play. So again, that's what makes it hard. And I don't want to pick an NPC because, I just mix up NPCs all the time and, throw it out there for what suits the game. So yeah, I don't know. That's tough. I got no answer on that one. About 5 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, Tim Kearney from Tabletop Terrors was asking me and a couple other people if we wanted to play in a Dragon Grin game. And this was before, it may have been a Copper Jackals game. And this was before like Dragon Grin was actually like a product or anything like that. I know they were working on it at the time. And I wanted to make a warlock who was a frontline character, more like a tank. And he was going to be Pact of the Blade. I have still never played it. I made that character. I think he was like level 5 warlock and maybe a level dip or 2 and something else, something like that. And the idea was he was going to have the Pact of the Blade. His pact was with an Old One's patron. He was going to have, is it Devil Sight? I think it's Devil Sight, where you can see through magical darkness. He was obviously going to have the magical darkness spell. And the idea was he was going to use weapons and armor, and he was going to try and get in close range so that he could do these things. And I was really excited to play him. I still to this day think he would be an extremely effective character. Eldritch Blast was not even in his repertoire, I don't think. So that was the idea. And I thought that would have been a cool character. I still think it's going to be a cool character. The idea, too, his backstory was his family died. He I think he also had a blacksmithing background. But yeah, his family had died. And so that was the whole reason he was deciding to leave and go out and become a copper jackal and try to help the world. And that was the exciting part of it. He had a rich backstory that lended itself perfect for what he was going to do. I am 100% a dice goblin. I would like to get more specialized dice. If you make dice and you want to send me dice, feel free. I've got plenty of room for dice. But I want some dice that match my logo. I have a set that kind of do the really bright, almost like the turquoise in my logo. The unfortunate part is the gold paint in the numbers is kind of flaked off, and so some numbers are really hard to see. I think the 18 actually looks like a 13, unfortunately. And so once I realized that, I quit using those dice altogether. They just sit in my dice box. But yeah, I would love to have those. Maybe some metal dice, silver with that brighter blue in my logo would be nice. Or I love specialty dice. So I have like character alignment dice and character class dice. And those are really cool. I've rolled those. I also have the racial dice for 5e. I love that stuff. I have a trap die. There's a lot of cool dice. I think it's from Think RPG or something like that, where there's like dungeon dice or the D12s that are all actually D4s, where it's like just repeats 1 through 4 3 times. Like that's the stuff I really want to get. I want to get the more custom specialty dice. Maybe it's mood dice. That would be kind of cool. But yeah, I love dice. I can't ever have enough. Big fan of dice. Why would anyone be a dice minimalist? I know very few people who do not have an urge to get more dice. I mean, that's okay. If dice are just dice to you and you don't care what they look like and you can use them, more power to you. I mean, I can do that too. I use some pretty mundane dice sometimes just because, but I still like having the really pretty and really nice looking dice. You know, there's a few. I think one of my problems is I play multiple systems. The very first system I played was Palladium Books. I played that for a long time, and the mechanics, I don't know if I ever fully grasped, but at the same time, I think because so many people house rule it and they tweak it, that, again, it wasn't important to me to know every single rule. And, you know, so I knew some of the stuff. And when I made the switch to AD&D, because it felt so restrictive in your building of characters, that I don't know if I carried that over. In fact, with advanced D&D, I learned some of the rules at the time, and if somebody was running the game and they didn't play exactly by the rules, because I also noticed it usually went against me, and so it always bothered me. For example, when we played a game, we had a ranger in the party and then myself. And the ranger got weapon specialization. But I was playing a fighter, and that's like the big thing for a fighter. And I remember being like, well, this is crap, because that's the whole reason I took the fighter. If I could have specialization, I would have been the ranger, because you get some other cool stuff from being a ranger. So anyways, that bothered me. And I remember bringing that up, and just certain things that always kind of bothered me about that. And I carried that mindset over from that to playing Pathfinder for a minute. Luckily, when I was a player in Pathfinder, I didn't know all the rules, but I was learning them. And I tried DMing Pathfinder First Edition, and I couldn't wrap my head around all of it. There were a lot of things I couldn't remember there. When 5e came out, I felt really confident early on. Now, still to this day, there are a couple things I mix up. I always mix up the rogue advantage sneak attack deal. That one's not as bad. You know, obviously you don't get advantage just because your allies within 5 feet, but like advantage, you get the sneak attack damage, right? The other thing was the rogue assassinate ability, which always throws me off. And I think that's because when my wife was playing a rogue assassin in our campaign when it first came out, I thought, maybe I was wrong, but I thought I knew the rule. She thought she knew the rule. We didn't agree. The table couldn't agree with how it's supposed to be done. We then figured it out, but then every single time it came up, we always messed it up after, and I've not been able to get past that. So I'm planning on wrapping my head around that a little better the next time I have a rogue in my D&D 5e party. Maybe I'll just play one, and that'll make it stick better. But that was that. The other thing that still is difficult that I always have to reteach myself is THAC0. Anytime I play an old edition of D&D, I have to reteach myself THAC0. It just doesn't naturally stick for me for some reason. But there's a cool video on this channel with roll stats. I don't remember if it was Persuasion Check or if it was Session 0 of Beck Me, but Bill from Roll Stats definitely helped me out a lot with that. And yeah, so that is something I can always go back to now. So yeah, and then obviously I'm learning new systems all the time. So there's always new systems where I can't figure out all the rules, and that's just how it is, and that's okay. Ultimately, the thing that matters is that you have fun at your table. You don't have to know all the rules. You can fudge rules for the sake of the story, and ultimately, again, if your whole group is having fun, it doesn't rub anyone wrong, it's all good. So this was 15 questions. This is the D&D Tag by Ginny D. Great idea, Ginny. Love this. If you guys haven't yet, you should do this. If you're doing a blog post or a YouTube channel or whatever, a stream, answer these questions. Just have a good time with it. And I think you'll be surprised to find some of these are really hard to think of. And if you don't think so, then hey, more power to you. You get it done a lot quicker than I did. This was Master the Game. I am Juice. Game on.